I want the death penalty because I want to show you you can't kill God's son. That whole story is BS.
Do you think you're a monster?
Do I think I'm a monster? No. I see myself as more of like a saint. I have a plan to rid this earth of evil.
Most people that would come into that scene, Bill's murder scene, would be horrified.
Sure.
Horrified.
Imagine the reaction of the police officers who entered the house of 76-year-old Pastor William Shoneman, known as Pastor Bill, in New River, Arizona, and witnessed this. The pastor murdered and crucified, nailed to the wall with a crown of thorns on his head and a tag on his ear. Adam Christopher Schiff, a 51-year-old ex-convict, confessed to the brutal murder. He drove to Pastor Bill's residence in the early hours, executed him, and staged a crucifixion scene by pinning his arms and hands to the wall and placing a crown of thorns on his head, a symbol he fashioned from materials found in the woods. Schiff claimed the killing was part of a divine mission to punish religious leaders whom he believed were misleading their followers, and he expressed no remorse for his actions. Now, Schiff's confession revealed a broader, chilling plan to target at least 14 pastors or priests across 10 U.S. states, intending to use similar methods in what he described as a mission to purge those he perceived as false religious leaders. Had authorities not intervened, Schiff stated that he would have continued his rampage, specifically mentioning plans to kill additional clergy in Arizona and elsewhere before his arrest. Brianna White did a great job interviewing him, asking very good questions, and so we have a front row seat to analyze the behavior of a sociopathic religious zealot. But before we begin, my dear forensic friends, I want to welcome you back to the Crime Corner. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas, and I'm here to perform an autopsy on crime itself, dissecting the body language, analyzing the behavioral evidence, and uncovering the psychological DNA that these cases leave behind. If you're new here, this is where we go beyond the surface story and examine what the suspect's micro-expressions, vocal patterns, and physical tells reveal about guilt, deception, and the criminal mind. Now, if you find value in this kind of forensic behavioral analysis, help me build the case for more content by hitting that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss when we crack open a new case. So, going in with this, I'm going to analyze this from the beginning in chronological order because I think the first question is hands down the most important. But before that first question, we have a very brief clip of him entering the scene. He's going to do something that you're going to notice is important later on.
Hi, Mr. Schiff.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay, he is with all his handcuffs and his ankles are tied. Maybe it's the reason why he is swaying. I don't know, but he's entering a hat that's like a strut.
Hi, Mr. Schiff.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Okay, we're gonna see that maybe that's because of the tied ankles. But let's move on. This is the first question, right out of the gate.
Did you kill Pastor Bill Shoneman?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's a long story, but to summarize it.
First reaction to the first question, did you kill Pastor Shoneman? Yes, it was absolutely no remorse in his gaze. I'm gonna play it in slow motion. There was just a blink, but we don't know if he was blinking more than that because the camera changed it, but there was no remorse. It's just, yes, it's so quick and easy. So far, I would like to try to make a difference between if he's a psychopath or a sociopath, and we're going to, let's say, reach that conclusion at the end.
Why?
Because it's a long story, but to summarize it, Yahweh alone is God. It's the first commandment. It's the most important commandment of them all. The preachers are, in my perspective, are leading the flocks astray. They're preaching that Jesus is God's only son and God also.
So a couple of things here. We already realized that this is religiously motivated. And you notice that he tries to measure his words, be very respectful when he talks about his beliefs. And he does a couple of things here that are interesting. I'm going to show you. When he talks about the priests, where is that? Is the right? He does this. lips towards each other. This is something that is it's not that easy to spot. It is not that common, but it's covert anger. When he talks about the priests
are leading the flocks astray, they're preaching the Jesuses.
They're leading the flocks astray. They're preaching these wrong things according to him. So it's obvious from that gesture in itself that is completely related to anger, that he has contempt for those priests and pastors.
Leading the flocks astray, they're preaching that Jesus is God's only son and God also. That's not what God said. Very clearly, he said that he alone is God.
So he is also disagreeing with the fact that these priests and pastors say that Jesus is the Son of God and is God in himself. And he wants to make his point across, saying that they are wrong, and that's why he does this eyebrow flash. Remember that eyebrow flash is something that we do to connect with people. Could be that we're making an argument, like in this case. Maybe we could be greeting somebody. We raise our eyebrows. Maybe you just want to connect. I told you that in general could be a goodwill gesture, but it's mainly a connection gesture. So he wants to make his point across, like, I am right and they were wrong. It's like that's the way that he's approaching this. That is important to understand. How is going to be his behavior from now on?
Very clearly, he said that he alone is God. It's the first commandment. And so with the belief that Jesus is the only Son of God and God, God's laws were annulled entirely. There's 13 tribes of Israel. So what I wanted to do was execute and crucify 13 priests and put one of the tribes of Israel in each of their right ears.
Notice that when he says that he was planning to execute 13 priests. He does the lips towards each other again. And there's also a bit of a passion when he speaks, as in he gets really triggered. And you're going to notice, that's why I told you to pinpoint that swaying when he was entering and before he sat down. Because right now, we still see him talking in a, let's say, composed way, but he begins to lean forward as he expresses his plan. What was his plan? What were his intentions? So that leaning forward is that interest, is that he wants to add emphasis, intensity to his words, I had this plan. That least he was so proud of that. That's when he begins to show it.
So what I wanted to do was execute and crucify 13 priests and put one of the tribes of Israel in each of their right ears, which I did with this priest. I put the tribe of Benjamin. And then
notice when he says that the tribe of Benjamin it's like he wants to connect. I did something great. That's why he does that eyebrow flash, like saying, how about this? Oh, that was great, don't you think?
Benjamin. And then the 14th I wanted to do for Adam, because clearly Adam was God's one and only created son in his image, is the first story told in the Bible.
What is that? A couple things here. He begins to lean in again more repeatedly. I noticed that part of his body language baseline is speaking in this way. Is that slight asymmetry of his face, in which he pulls his left lip corner more than the other, and he does that almost all of the time. You could say, oh, that is contempt. I noticed that he does it almost all the time that he's speaking, so we can just discard it, or we can not discard it, but assume that is part of his body language baseline, which is important. Anything that goes away from that body language baseline, that is an emotional reaction, and that is important.
In his image is the first story told in the Bible.
So you feel the difference is between regular people that believe in God and pastors or preachers, that there's a difference there?
Huge difference, because the first commandment is the most important commandment of them all. Pornography, drugs, the sanctity of marriage is completely eroded. It's vicious out there. Somebody like me who's been in and out of prison, the prisons are...
Notice a couple of things. He is still speaking in a composed way. That's why I made that a white note in there. But when he talks that he has gone in and out of prison, he has this deep lean forward, as in he becomes restless. And his restlessness is going to be portrayed in the way that he sways back and forth and how he heavy leans forward, which is a bit terrifying. I can imagine Brianna was a bit terrified with this guy right in front of her. But that is the moment that you know that he is triggered. Maybe he regrets that going in and out of prison, and he says, I want to redeem myself in some way or another. And maybe that's why he decided to go on this killing spree in the name of what he believes. That is a possibility.
Like me, who's been in and out of prison, the prisons are flooded with drugs. And I'm thinking to myself,
again, he kind of does the leaps towards each other right here, right before the cut to the next the next take or the next edit. And I would say that maybe he hated what happened inside of prisons. So was this where all these people also against God or against what he believed, and so he also had contempt for people inside of prisons, or at least that was his body language portrayed.
And I'm thinking to myself, the world is a wreck,
But if you're talking about sin, murder is a sin.
Well, yeah, it is a sin, but God also commanded us to execute anyone that's preaching that someone other than him is God.
All right. In which scriptures it's there? There's a heavy nod in which he agrees, well, yeah, murder is a sin, but...
It is a sin, but God also commanded us to execute anyone that's preaching that someone other than him is God.
Notice that the swaying has begun to become more noticeable. He's becoming a bit triggered about this, about trying to make his point across.
Because it's that serious. They're claiming that Jesus is God and that somebody other than God is God. So what's this Jesus is only God's son garbage that I was raised to believe? That's not what God said.
So
I notice in my spectrum analyzer, I have I cannot show it easily here, but I notice that when he says this, that the fact that Jesus is God's only son, that is garbage. He was raised to believe that. And that is not what God said. He raises his voice. Again, it's very obvious that he gets triggered about what he was raised to believe, what other people, like these priests, preach. So it is more than obvious. It's more than obvious, but at the same time, it's a nice exercise because that's how you notice what triggers him. Because it's the same pattern when somebody is triggered by, doesn't have to be some religious stuff, somebody can be triggered by anything else, and when you see that they begin swaying, raising their voice, you are witnessing an emotional reaction. That is important to learn this stuff.
What God said.
So when did this plan come to fruition? You're thinking about this, you want to carry out this hit list?
Yes.
A hit list.
Sure.
There's a nod with connecting with his eyes. Remember that at the beginning he was looking down, he was measuring his words, but no, he's completely sure right now. What is this, a hit list?
Want to carry out this hit list?
Yes.
A hit list.
Sure.
14 pastors.
That's right. Around the nation. To surround the nation.
Starting in Arizona?
Starting in Arizona, where I was born. Where it starts is where it ends, like the Garden of Eden.
How did you pick out these pastors and these preachers?
I just let the Spirit follow me wherever I landed. And the first one where I went was Olive Street, the Church of Christ. And I thought, well, that makes sense. There shouldn't be a Church of Christ. There should only be a Church of Yahweh.
That was extremely easy to spot, that there shouldn't be a Church of Christ, which he is against. It should only be a Church of Yahweh, and he looks upwards, and perhaps I think the only display that he does this, and that you can clearly see the tattoo on his neck and the way that he behaves. Yeah, this is what a zealot looks like, but we haven't yet defined if he's a psychopath or a sociopath. What do you think? Maybe in the comments, maybe before you keep watching, you can make your guess and we can arrive at the conclusion at the
There
end.
shouldn't be a Church of Christ. There should only be a Church of Yahweh.
So you get to Phoenix.
I get to Phoenix. I just set up a tent under a tree on Olive Street, and I followed that priest home Sunday after Easter service. And when he pulled into his driveway, the two women came out of the garage. I'm not interested in executing anyone other than the pastors or the shepherds leading the flock astray.
It's something that you are going to notice that he speaks in a way that it's so methodical. How he notice how he. I know that he's from Arizona, but the fact that it was in Phoenix, it was in Olive Street. Olive Street was right. The Church of Christ. It's like he was. I don't think that it was a coincidence. It was not a whisper from God or something like that. I think that he was expressly picking up those words, those landmarks, just by their significance. And I see that he's going to make it seem like I was so surgical that this was not really against the people who are being led astray. It's about specifically the pastor. So in some way, he's going to paint himself as righteous. Oh, I was sparing those who were being led astray.
So then I said to myself, okay, I need to find pastors or priests that live alone. And so I set up another tent off of a Carefree Highway between 24th and 16th Street, and I was looking at those churches, and then I happened to stumble across the New River Church, and I followed him home, and I saw that he lived alone.
So you had no previous contact with Pastor Bill?
Zero. I
Zero.
didn't want any.
He shrugs. You have noticed that he shrugs a lot, and it's not a single shoulder shrug. He shrugs like it's like this is no big deal. I'm doing this because I have to do. He shrugs off everything that has to do if he is remorseful about this, if he had any qualms about this. Like, this is no big deal. Like, he actually believes he was doing good, and he actually believes that look at this. I wanted to target pastors who lived alone, who had no family. Who lived alone because, Pastor Bill had a family. So maybe that was not part of the plan.
Previous contact. My only criteria was you're breaking the first commandment.
Pastor Bill was innocent.
Innocent. In your perspective, there's nothing
But not
worse.
yours.
But there's nothing worse than breaking the first commandment.
Notice that reaction says it's all. Brianna says Pastor Bill was innocent, and he leans in and asks that question, raising
Pastor
his
Bill
eyebrows.
was innocent.
Innocent.
Innocent? What do you mean innocent? He was breaking the first commandment. It's like he's actually asking that question. He's generally asking the question, what do you mean that he's innocent? He was breaking this first commandment, and yeah, the guy is actually triggered. And even if he's trying to keep his voice at the same level, he's not making a very good case about this. I'm going to go ahead and change the clip color because I want to do something later with this clip.
In your perspective, there's nothing
But
worse.
not yours.
There's nothing worse than breaking the first commandment. All you got to do is just worship Jesus and you go to heaven. Your sins are all forgiven. That's not what God said.
But do you
Notice that he is mocking what the pastor would have said, and then he has this deep lean forward. He is triggered, and the way that he portrays how triggered he is that leaning, that swaying back and forth. You're gonna notice that it's gonna become more and more and more pronounced. At some point, he almost out of the frame.
Worship Jesus and you go to heaven. Your sins are all forgiven. That's not what God said.
But do you think God was going to forgive your sins?
Absolutely, he'll forgive my sins. He's a forgiving God. He's a loving God.
I don't understand. Wait a second. So these priests were sinners, right? And so he decided that he had to kill them. But he's saying that God is all forgiving, so God was going to forgive his sins, but not those priests' sins. I'm getting a bit confused here. That's what I tell you. That's those inconsistencies. It's like that's when you see that what comes out of the mouth of a zealot, it's like they cherry pick the stuff they want to interpret, the stuff they want to do, and in the end it doesn't make sense. The math ain't mathing. The sinner versus not sinner, the forgiven ones and not forgiving others. That is, my head hurts.
How do you justify that? I mean, if you're killing somebody or multiple people attempted,
Okay, but
how does that work?
It's a commandment to rid Israel of evil.
You see Bill,
Yeah.
you follow him home.
That's right.
What happens next?
Then I follow him home. I see that he lives alone. All right. I go back to the house, or I go back to the desert where I'm camping.
Notice that he's describing the thing like he describing the steps of the barbecue he made last Sunday. It's like no big deal to him.
I need weapons, right? I need something to execute him with. So I go into a house. I walk to a house and go into it. There's no one living there. And I'm in Phoenix for the tribe Benjamin. It's the first tribe up. And there's a rifle under the bed that has painted on it, Phoenix Benjamin, which was a pellet gun. But I thought, Benjamin Phoenix, that's what I'm supposed to use. I don't know, it was just crazy coincidence.
You're hiding outside.
I'm hiding outside the house. The helicopter's on top of me. We're maybe 5 blocks from the house because I ran through the mountain. Then I waited for the helicopter to leave. I've done this, I've been in and out of prison, so I know I ran the police probably 100 times in my life.
Notice how when he talks about being in and out of prison, running away from the cops, like 100 times in his life, he gets uncomfortable again, has to fix himself in the chair. He leans forward. He gets triggered about that. Maybe he feels, I'm ashamed of my life getting in and out of prison. I have to do something about that. Even outside of the prison, all this sin inside of the prison, full of drugs, I have to do something about that. But he feels uncomfortable about his past.
I ran the police probably 100 times in my life. So
Okay, a couple of things. He was speaking so calm and collected that at some point I thought this might be a psychopath. You know that psychopath can be totally detached, totally emotionless, as in not having any kind of remorse, as he was showing, but he gets triggered so bad, and that Joe Clanch, and he was talking about this, and the way that he gets triggered begins swaying back and forth. That tells me that he might have been more than born with. He was made a criminal, made a zealot, and so this is a stronger case for a sociopath, not somebody who was born with that condition, but was, say, nurtured or affected into that condition, we could say. I have a video of psychopaths versus sociopaths, by the way, but I'm going to do a brief explanation at the end of this analysis. So
I leave, and then when I come back to the house later after all the police leave, my car, they confiscated, they took it, so now I don't have a vehicle. So I broke back into the house because I know there's a truck in the garage. I got the supplies I needed to do the execution, and I drove from there to Bill's house like 2 in the morning on a Sunday night, and I executed him. And then I crucified him by nailing him to the wall, screwing him to the wall. It's fast.
Yeah, he just speaks like, okay, I just did a work of drywall at the home, and it was just so nice, and no change in tone. Notice that he's not swaying back and forth. He just looks to his left, something that he hasn't done in a while. I think that he hasn't done that in the whole interview, but he's calmer than you can imagine when he said, and I just executed him.
And I executed him, and then I crucified him by nailing him to the wall, screwing him to the wall. It's fast. I mean, it's, you know, I didn't want it to be bloody. I didn't want it to be a painful.
I didn't want it to be bloody. I didn't want it to be painful. He wants to make it seem like, oh, I wanted to make it as, you know, as, painless for the pastor. Like, look, how good am I? Okay, he is acting in the name of God. He's acting for his beliefs. He is doing what has to be done, but he makes sure to not make a big fuss out of that, to try to be clean, to try to look for people who live alone. Well, the fact that the pastor live alone I think this more to make the job easier rather than if he had a family or not.
I'm not trying to torture the guy. I just wanted to execute him quickly. So I just put my hand over his mouth and told him to sit still, don't move, and wait until he stopped breathing.
What did you feel in that moment?
So he basically killed him with his bare hands.
You know, I'm executing a plan, and so in that moment, I wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to start breathing again. And then I took a stud finder, found the studs in the wall, and I had a power drill, and I put him in the cross position on the wall, and I screwed him to the wall. And then I had a crown of thorns I put on his head, and in a leather strap, I had hammered in the tribe of Benjamin in Hebrew letters, in large letters, and on the other side, I had the first commandment in Hebrew letters, that Yahavah alone is God. And I hung that from his right ear with a rusty piece of wire that I had through the leather strap that I already had pre-ready to go. Yeah. So I just punched it through his ear and hung it. So he's crucified against the wall with the image of Jesus. Because what I'm saying is, you know, what you're preaching is not what God said. It's the opposite of what God said.
Most people.
So yeah, it was a complete method, completely premeditated, and he speaks like that. That's why this could be mistaken as a psychopath, because it's only the swaying back and forth. It's the raising the tone. It's the jaw clenching that tells you that no, that there's still a conflict in there. Where there's a conflict. I am not saying that sociopaths are better, quote unquote, than psychopaths. They're just different, and that is the difference that I see here, is that even if he talks in a psychopathic manner, there's all kind of noise, body language noise, that no, this is a bit more rough than whatever he wants it to look.
Most people that would come into that scene, Bill's murder scene, would be horrified.
Sure,
horrified.
That's right.
He is really proud of how he didn't want it to be gory or bloody or torture the guy, or he wanted to, but he wanted, what he really wanted was to send a message. Literally, look at like Jinx, baby. They say the word at the same time, and when he says the word horrified, at the same time Brianna says he's really proud of that. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. That is that proud face, really proud face. That is exactly, you are getting it. I wanted people to be horrified so other pastors and priests stop doing what they are doing.
Sure,
horrified.
That's right.
Were you feeling satisfied?
I wasn't, I mean, look, it's not in my heart to go around killing people.
It's not in my heart. What? No, I need to rewatch this.
I mean, look, it's not in my heart to go around killing people. Look,
I need to mark this. This needs a special marker here.
Look, he's my daddy. So, you're preaching somebody.
When he says he's my daddy, he is pointing up. He means God.
Else is, his son that's not his son. Well, where's Jesus in the Bible?
But I know you also have a family. Bill has a family. Mm-hmm. Did you think about that at all?
No, I'm thinking about.
Notice that when they begin to talk about, like, again, Brianna asked very good questions here. Bill has a family. You have a family. It's like that's something that you have in common. Do you think about them, like Bill's family and your family, when you did this? And that is the moment. That's why I made sure to include him in the frame, even from the back, because that's one of the few moments in which he completely lowers his head, and even has that pacifying gesture. It's like there's a certain conflict in there, and that's what sold me the idea that this was a sociopath instead of a psychopath. A psychopath wouldn't have had that reaction, or at least the kind of reactions that we have seen so far.
Bill has a family. Did you think about that at all?
No, I'm thinking about the families that are in utter destruction, by following these false teachings and not obeying God and not giving our Creator the respect for giving families life to begin with.
I noticed that how he switches from, I am not thinking about my family or Bill's family, about families at large who have been misled by these false prophets. It's like, it's like you have to get your priorities, straight. And somebody acts in a way that I want to save families. There's a problem in there. There's a problem of perspective.
Do you feel remorse for those who lost Bill as their family? Their father?
Well, I mean, no, because I lost, I lost he erased my daddy, he's saying that somebody other than my.
Notice that he feels uncomfortable. He's really uncomfortable when he realizes that there was an actual fallout of killing Pastor Bill in terms of his family, his son. So he shrugs and he makes himself smaller right there. Like he does this and looks down. He's trying, and he begins stuttering. He's trying to justify that because in some way he feels bad. I think that in some way he feels bad for the fallout. Okay, there are people who are suffering because of this, suffering because I have done. I sent a message. I'm proud of the message I sent, but there are people who did not deserve this. But again, he still believes that he did the right thing.
Well, I mean, no, because I lost, I lost he erased my daddy, he's saying that somebody other than my daddy's God. So do I feel remorse?
But your dad's alive.
Well, my human father's alive, but I don't think of him as my dad. I think of God as my dad.
When he says God as my dad, he looks up again as he did previously.
I think of God as my dad.
When did that come about?
That came about 9 years ago.
Why 9 years ago? What happened?
A light shot through the ceiling of my cell and into me, and ever since then I see the Star of David.
Did you think you were going to get away with this?
I wasn't planning on getting away with it. I know who I am. God would never allow me to spend the rest of my life in jail, and he'll never allow anyone to execute me, which is why I said set the execution date right now. God would never, ever, ever sacrifice his son.
If you had 14 that you wanted to carry out,
That's right.
Wouldn't you have tried to get away with this, to try to carry out all 14?
Yeah, I did try to carry out all 14.
But obviously you got caught after the first one.
That's right.
If you had gotten away with Bill's murder, where were you going to go next?
That's where I got caught, was
Sedona.
In Sedona. That's why I had my tent. There was 2 priests, and I had.
There's so much, like I'm a bit confused by this sequence of statements, but let's continue.
I was going to do Ephraim and tribe Manasseh were next. I had both of the leather tags made out, both of the thorn crowns.
Yeah, where'd you get a thorn crown?
In the desert, the trees with the thorns on them. I cut it and make a crown of thorns. I just, in a circle, So I had both of those priests as my target. I was en route of getting into the back of the car of the second priest, and an old lady got in front of me. I had lost my vehicle because I got in a high-speed chase with the police in the stolen truck in Sedona. I escaped. I ran up a mountain. I got away from all the cops. I hiked all the way back to my tent, and I was still, on target for those 2 priests. But I wanted my target so bad that I refused to leave, so I hiked all the way back, because the high-speed chase probably was 10 miles.
Notice that he has been talking about the high-speed chase and how his plan was foiled. He's really triggered because the swing back and forth is more intense than ever. We're in the last 2 minutes of the interview, you're gonna notice a couple things.
You know, it went for a while. I was going fast. I got back to my tent at like 3 in the morning, got up in the morning.
So had you not been caught, were you planning to murder the next day?
Yeah, I tried that day. I couldn't get into the back. Where the pastors or priests park is right in front of the Holy Cross. And so I thought, man, I gotta follow him home, but I lost the truck. So the reason why I got caught is because I was looking for a vehicle to steal to be able to follow him, which is why I triggered the alarm in that house and went into the garage, hoping there would be an extra vehicle. Had I had a vehicle, those two were done.
Notice how he speaks. Had I had a vehicle, those two would have done, and just like that, it's like no remorse. That was the plan, and he comes back to his composed, totally chill way of speaking.
Had I had a vehicle, those two were done. They didn't have a chance in hell.
Your final priest was where you were baptized?
That's right.
Why was that church on your list? Was there a...
It's personal because I start in Phoenix, it starts in the Garden of Eden, ends in the Garden of Eden. I start in Phoenix where I was born on this life, and I'm going to end in Phoenix where I was baptized, which I don't appreciate, when I was 3 years old by my parents. You know, I'm baptized in a belief that is completely false. And from there was Las Vegas, Nevada, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Billings, Montana, Detroit, Michigan, New York, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Notice the swaying, so intense. Like he was so on. He's so triggered by the way that all that was for.
Mobile, Alabama, Beaumont, Texas, and El Paso, Texas. So 4 of them are going to get hit in Arizona. So I was circling the United States.
How'd you pick those states?
Just to circle it.
So you have zero remorse for this killing.
Not only do I have zero remorse, I plan on fulfilling what I started. If my Father puts me in an authoritative position on this earth, I will execute every single priest and burn every church to the ground.
I mean, it's like
All right.
likely you'll be in prison for the rest of your life.
That's what you think. I want the death penalty because I want to show you can't kill God's son. That whole story is BS.
So if you're given the death penalty, it's not likely.
What? All right. I want the death penalty.
I want the death penalty because I want to show you can't kill God's son. That whole story is BS. I want to show you can't kill God's son. That whole story is BS.
So if you're given the death penalty, it's not likely you'll be executed quickly.
Well, I want it quickly so that we can get this show on the road and show exactly what I'm trying to do.
Would you want to be crucified?
Couldn't happen.
But is that
I
something
couldn't so
you
much
want?
as dash my foot upon a stone. I mean, the cops, the dogs are coming at me. I saw my Father had angels just direct them to the left, direct them to the right. Not one bit me.
How would you feel, though, if somebody crucified you?
Good luck trying. I have the plan to rid this earth of evil.
Okay, mate. So good luck with that plan. Really good luck with that plan. This is insane. I have a plan to get.
I have the plan to rid this earth of evil.
I have a plan to rid this earth of evil. The guy really wants to know that he's the main character. This is huge main character syndrome.
Evil.
I mean, do you really think that?
You see that Brianna's. I have to talk about Brianna's body language. Like saying this guy is nuts. This guy is nuts. I hope that Brianna sees this analysis. It's a great interview. Great question.
I mean, do you really think that this is normal?
I think these are the end times. These are the last days. I am the lion. I'm called evil, and the preacher preaching that someone other than God, the son of Satan, is God, is considered good.
Notice how at some point I had to include the whole frame of the interview. At some point, that's why you see the black bars on top. I usually crop to have the subject on the frame so you can see easily. But he was swaying back and forth so bad, saying that I am the lion. He was going full Charles Manson in this one. He was going completely nuts in this one, and the swaying was, well, it's literally going out of the frame. I told you, I warned you a while ago.
I'm called evil, and the preacher preaching that someone other than God, the son of Satan, is God, is considered good. And so what did I do? I struck, because I'm everyone's oldest father, and daddy's going to strike.
Notice how he is not only really triggered, but he's starting to open his eyes more. Look at his eyes right now. This is the guy who killed the pastor. There it is. There you see it.
His father, and daddy's going to strike.
Daddy is going to strike. All right. All right. It's absolutely nuts. I think that is the scientific term. I'm pretty sure.
Daddy's going to strike.
Do you think you're a monster?
Do I think I'm a monster? No.
I mean, but it's
I found that that was one of my, so to speak, favorite clips. Do you think you're a monster? And the way that he reacts, it's not serious. It's playful with glee.
Do you think you're a monster?
Do I think I'm a monster? No.
I mean, but it's a gruesome killing of another person. Most people would consider that monstrous.
Sure, of course they would.
But you don't think you are?
No, I see myself as more of like a saint.
I see myself more like a saint, like a martyr, I guess.
I mean, from your perspective, that's murder. Thou shalt not kill. That is one of the 10 commandments. But also God commands that if anybody is to preach that anyone other than him is God, we are to stone them to death, or we are to execute them. And so I'm following that law. Did God ask me to do this? Absolutely not.
Notice the way that he's so unhinged right now that he's not only looking away and down, but his body is rocking, his head is turned to one side. Now it's turned left, in fact, and he's talking all over the place with this. This guy was beginning to lose it right now. It was in the span of 12 minutes. We are 12 minutes into the interview. I think it's 1 minute left.
But also God commands that if anybody is to preach that anyone other than him is God, we are to stone them to death, or we are to execute them. And so I'm following that law. Did God ask me to do this? Absolutely not. I did it on my own because I got sick and tired and fed up.
You're cherry picking certain commandments to follow and not.
Sure.
How do you choose that, and why?
Right.
He agrees that he's cherry picking the commandments. Again, good question, and even more outrageous answer.
How do you choose that, and why?
Right. So it's difficult, right? Thou shalt not kill. That's a clear commandment. Also, there's a commandment that if somebody is preaching that somebody other than God is God, we are to execute them and rid evil of Israel. So I'm obeying that commandment.
So you're just choosing what works for you?
No, I'm choosing what God's commandments are. So yeah, you'd say, hey, on one hand, God is saying, thou shalt not kill, but on the other hand...
It's still picking what you think matters most in the commandments.
Well, then
it's not following thou shalt not kill, clearly.
Well, yeah, but thou shalt not kill is do not hold anger in your heart towards your brethren and strike them where they die. If somebody is breaking God's commandments, like, during the Sabbath...
You've interpreted this how you see fit.
That's how God, that's the way God commanded it.
I don't think God said, go murder pastors. He just didn't.
He didn't.
No, I agree. Sorry, this is so outrageous. This the way how he is. The vein in the temple appear. The guy is totally unhinged by now. I wouldn't want to be in that room at this point.
Tell me to do that? Absolutely not. I did that on my own. But it is a commandment. It is in the Bible that if if anyone's preaching that somebody other than God is God, breaking the first commandment, the punishment for breaking the first commandment is death. You replace who my daddy is, I'm going to nail you to the wall.
Notice that he has been speaking without expletives, and all of a sudden he drops an F-bomb because he's cornered.
That's brutal.
Well, life is brutal. Satan is brutal.
So that's where the interview ends. So you notice that he was really triggered. He was cornered. Like again, the questions corner him into a position where he could no longer defend what he did. As in, you are obeying a commandment, but going against another commandment. Which one? Some commandments are more commanding than others. How does that work? It doesn't work like that. We know that it doesn't work like that. And we know that religious zealots like this one are going to just cherry pick what they want to, for their nefarious activities. And you can see that this guy only wanted an excuse to go and murder people. That's all. I'm going to do it in the name of something that I believe in. Even if at first he was calm and composed. Remember at the start of the interview how he was calm and collected, talking about stuff, not swaying back and forth. Now he's raising his eyebrows all the time. He has the vein in the temple. He was looking all over. He was maybe not raising his voice, but the swaying was all over the place. He was stuttering. He knew that there's a huge dissonance in here. So my verdict is that this is a classic sociopath. Is not somebody who is can remain calm and collected when they speak. It's a bit difficult sometimes to tell the difference, but again, with how emotional he got with some of the questions, and especially how he get from trigger right now and to so proud of what he did, and so proud of the image that he, the horrifying image that he left in the murder scene. Yeah, he's very emotional about that. And that is not a sign of psychopaths. Again, you can maybe highlight in the comments, what do you think about this? And by the way, you can also help me find other cases that you want to analyze and maybe study from a body language and behavior perspective. This is the Crime Corner. We're still getting started. I'm getting the hang of it, and I will try to make these videos as engaging as possible. And well, with these cases, I'm pretty sure that we're gonna have a lot. I still have to work on the Madeline Soto case. There's a lot of material. Most probably I will be making a video tomorrow, the first video about the Madeline Soto case. But again, it is you who can give me the best feedback for this and tell me which other cases you want to see. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Crime Corner. Much love and bliss.